Possession crucial from this. How much longer will the referee allow? Dublin lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over. It's over.
We earned it by winning the last 2 matches on the road, and that's not going to be taken away from us.
But what I love in hurling, I love players that will never give in.
He hits it. He hits it. It's over the bar. Oh, holy Moses.
Hello, welcome to the RTÉ GAA Podcast. Mikey Stafford here, joined by Rory O'Neill and Peter Canavan to look back on a Super Sunday in the Alliance Football League, and Shane McGrath will be along later to look back on an adequate Saturday in the Alliance Hurling League. So it wasn't the same, let's be honest. Everybody knows if the hurling was better than football, I'd be the first person to say it, but it wasn't. How are we doing, lads?
Good, Mikey. Very good.
Good, Mikey. Thanks.
First off, an apology to all our listeners and viewers. Thursday's podcast never made it. It was recorded. It was a good one.
It was a good one, Mikey.
Yeah, Jackie and Rory. Rory said some of his best lines ever. He was never as funny and as charming and as intelligent as he was on Thursday. But unfortunately, somebody's laptop effectively blew up, and despite our best efforts, the laptop could not be resuscitated, and the doctors had to call it sometime on Friday morning, and the podcast was lost. First time that's ever happened, Rory. We've been doing this podcast a fair while now. We've had a couple of false starts, all right, but a couple of false starts. I've had my heart put across me a couple of times looking for a file on a laptop which seemed to have disappeared, but it had always been found. So that's the first and hopefully the last time. So again, apologies everybody. Okay, we're recording. Yeah, we're recording. So let's start with just a quick overview. I won't go through all the results because I think everybody was kind of glued to it. But what I found interesting is the provincial breakdown, Peter. The 4 finalists next weekend, 4 from Leinster. Leinster's rising, obviously. 2 from Connacht, 1 from Ulster, and 1 from Munster. And if you said there was 8 teams relegated, let's pretend for this that there's relegation from Division 4. Let's just say the bottom two teams, and for the purposes of this, London or a Connacht team. You had 1 Munster team in the bottom 2, 1 Leinster team in the bottom 2, 2 Connacht teams in the bottom 2, and 4 Ulster teams, Peter.
It's the new rules, Mikey. The new rules have found out Ulster football.
Are you worried, Peter Canavan? Discuss.
Do you have to score now to win games?
Yeah.
Well, you can look at it another way. You can look at divisions 1 and 2 for next year, and you still see 6 Ulster teams there dominating it. You go to divisions 3 and 4. And I see 6 Leinster teams down there. So, look,
we know our level, Peter. We know our level.
But even, you're right. Look, in terms of scoring and defensive setups for teams that had mastered the blanket defence and playing in a certain style of football, the new rules has thrown that out the window. It's now a different game. Just even the scoring averages from the league in Division 1, I know Kerry were the highest scores, averaging over 24 points, but Tyrone had the meanest defence, but that was only averaging 18 points. So any other year, if you said the best defence in Division 1 was averaging 18 points, you would say, God, that's not a great defence. So sure. It gives you an indication now that, yeah, there's less defenders back there in the first place. Numerically, so there's a bit more space up there for forwards. The 2-point arc has meant there's more teams shooting now from distance than ever before, and I think it's added. Of course, it's added to the game. Most neutrals and most supporters would say that the fair has been exciting across all divisions. But in terms of the balance of power shifting, it's only a slight one, Mikey. It's only a slight one.
I won't ask you to wear your FRC hat for this entire podcast, I promise. But one thing that did strike me was we'll come back to the Kerry and the fact that they're racking up huge scores without 2-pointers, which is interesting in itself. But that Kerry Galway scoreline. Let's say they're 2 of the teams expected to be at the pointy end of the championship.
It's a hurling scoreline.
Yeah, 324 to 219. Do you think that is what we are going to get in the championship, or do you think that's a reflection of the fact that you had a match there between probably one team who definitely didn't want to lose and be relegated, and in Galway, a team who, God, people talking about Jim McGuinness and Donegal pulling up the handbrake. I think Galway took 1 point out of 6 in their last 3 games. So do you think when the elite teams go at it hammer and tongs in the championship, we're still going to be getting score lines like this, or is this partly a reflection of the league being, as we like to say, the league?
Yeah, there's a wee bit of that. Kerry had to win the game. Mind you, yesterday Galway didn't, and you've got to put it into context. I do believe you're going to get more goals, and with the 2-pointers, the scores are going to be that much higher. I don't think there'll be too many games where you will get score lines like that. But you look across. I'm just looking at all the games. Every game there was goals in Division 1. I think Cavan and Cork down. Westmeath didn't score any goals in Division.
But there should have been a lot of goals in that Cavan Cork game. There should have been.
Yeah, and look, there was opportunities missed yesterday by both Dublin and Tyrone too, and it could have been much more. So, look, we don't know, Mikey, but maybe there will be when the ground gets faster and the ball is now moving much quicker. There's plenty of examples yesterday from good goals being scored from early ball being kicked in.
You can already see it, the ball being played into space for a corner forward, and the corner forward knowing the ball is actually going to bounce and he can run onto it, as opposed to it getting kind of stuck in the quagmire. You can already see the play kind of speeding up, can't you?
Absolutely, and when you have quality forwards in there, teams are now learning as the league has gone on. There's appears to be more kick passing, and for a lot of teams, that's something new to them. Whereby they've been holding on to a ball and there's been a lot of lateral movement. Now teams and players are being encouraged to get the heads up. There are players inside and there is more kicking. And I said that can only be good for the game.
There was one lovely moment, Rory, from the Galway Kerry game. It was Matthew Tierney's goal. Paul Conroy got the ball on the edge of the arc, and you could see every Kerry defender was thinking, he's going to shoot here, he's going to shoot. And next thing you just played this lovely dinked ball over the Kerry defence to Matthew Tierney, who was as close to unmarked as you're ever going to be, and he scored the goal. It shows you that the 2-pointer isn't just about the 2-pointer.
No, it draws teams out, and it does create that little bit of space in behind. We saw some incredible goals. I mean, Dara's goal, the ball from Darren McCurry. I mean, the outside of the left boot. I was watching. I think it was Davy Byrne who was marking Dara. Might not have been now, but you could see the ball flying over his head and him thinking, "Uh-oh, I'm caught here." And I like Conor Callaghan's goal at the other end was equally impressive. You know, like that just early ball to a forward that's prepared to try and get out in front, win it, because he knows now if he can do that, you obviously have the advance to mark, which will give you that extra little bit of a get out of jail card should you not decide to take on the chance. And we saw it last week with Comer. We've seen, like, I think the fact that we're seeing a lot more goals is absolutely welcome. And maybe justification for not going down the 4-point route at the beginning of this, that maybe it wasn't necessary. No, that might change in time. We don't really know for certain. Like, this is still all very much an experimental mode, and it will be all through the championship. You know, but like Armagh knocking in 4 goals. Now, one of them was effectively a pushover try. I felt very sorry. I felt very sorry for the Derry goalkeeper. That to me looked like a certain free out. But I mean, it's been a positive.
Yeah. So go on, Peter.
I was going to say that there are far more examples of the Route 1 football and the ball being kicked in. I think Matty Tierney got a brilliant goal from big high ball kicked into him on the 20-metre line, and he went for the goal. So you referenced Conor O'Callaghan's goal earlier. The fact that Niall Morgan was out there, he was concerned. There's a 1-on-1. If O'Callaghan wins this ball, there's a 1-on-1 opportunity. So he was aware of that, and that was why he gambled on going out to try and break the ball away from him in the first place. So absolutely, you would imagine we're going to go back in days, and there will be absolutely far more long kick passing into the inside line.
There's a few forwards in the game where that gamble is probably not worth the gamble. He's one. Damien Comer is another. Your hopes, even the 2 defenders stopping certain forwards from catching the ball cleanly, he's the one you would not bet against, unfortunately, for Tyrone. Well, look, it was an odd day, as you said. Tyrone played really well, went down with 7 points, which is a record since the leagues were reconstructed rearranged into 8 teams. At one point yesterday, Mayo and Kerry were both, in line for relegation, one and then the other. And in the end, thanks to Darrow Wheel's helpful penalty that Colin Reap managed to step in front of, basically, you have a Mayo Kerry final, which I genuinely believe Jack O'Connor when he says he's delighted about it because, Rory, they're playing in Munster. They're not out until later in the month.
Yeah, I mean, we mentioned this in the podcast that never made air.
Sure you did.
But
you predicted a Mayo Kerry final, Rory, on Thursday. You did.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I had the lotto numbers as well for you. But the one thing that in relation to Kerry, if you look at last year's calendar, they didn't really play a significant game of any real merit until the 29th of June after the league was finished, because they ended up in a group stage with Louth, Monaghan and Meath. They were all Division 2 teams, I think, bar Monaghan, who had been relegated. So they navigated their way through. Look, we know Munster is, let's call it a foregone conclusion. So, from Kerry's perspective, the fact that they're going up to Croke Park at this time of the year, knowing that they're not probably going to really be tested until they get into a knockout game like they did last year when they played Derry in that now infamous fixture, I think they'll go all out. I think it'll make for a good final as well, and hopefully a good crowd. Look, Mayo, we know will always bring good support. They've got plenty of people living up here. Look, it's a good outcome for the GAA in many ways. I would have loved to have seen Galway and Dublin again. I really, they have produced Galway, Dublin and Kerry. Between the three of them have produced some very good, some outstanding football. And look, it's not surprising. I was having a look there this morning at the odds. Kerry are favourites, along with Donegal. And that probably tallies with the way I'd see it too.
Yeah. Before we move on to Dublin Tyrone, because I thought it was a very interesting game, Peter. Mayo, we had Lee Keegan. Even Lee Keegan was on here a few weeks ago early in the league saying he feared for Mayo. I think he may have actually said he feared for Mayo before a ball was kicked in his column. And the first couple of weeks wouldn't have done much to disabuse them of that notion, but they have come good. And people will wonder after what happened a couple of years ago whether Mayo want to be in the league final or not. But considering what they looked like after a couple of rounds, you have to say Kevin McStay has turned things around, and they have, this is Mayo 3.0 or whatever of the modern era, but he has regenerated this team, and he's done so, you must remember, without a couple of their leading lights.
Well, I think Tyrone gives them a helping hand to get up and running. Mayo had played 2 games, lost both of them. Played Tyrone on the 3rd game in Castlebar, and Tyrone, I think, kicked something like 10 shots into the goalkeeper's hands. They had the win of the game. The game ended. Mayo finished it really strong the last 5 or 6 minutes. Got a draw out of it, and since that literally haven't looked back. Their second half performance was up on the athletic grounds against Armagh. Was after an uninspiring first half. Whatever happened at half time, Jack Kearney came on and Mayo played some brilliant football, and I think they've continued in that vein for the rest of the league. So absolutely deserving to be where they are, and for Kevin McStay to bring in so many younger players into the team, it's been a brilliant turnaround for them and a really positive end to the league, and they'll take so much out of that with so many young players there. The other team, I know you said you would have liked to have seen Dublin in the National League final. Again, when you look at the quality of the players that they haven't had for this National League, if that had won yesterday, they were in a league final. Some people would have questioned whether or not they would have been at the bottom end and struggling to get out of. So they have a strong squad there, maybe 1 or 2 really experienced players to come back into it. But and again, the Donegal thing, Donegal should have been in a league final, and that's a travesty for the way things worked out. In that any competition, you should be playing to win every match, and playing and the way it is at the minute is not good enough. And I would imagine that there will be changes made next year whereby there will definitely be a 2-week break between league and championship, and that will allow every game to be played the way it should be.
You get the impression, Rory, that Jim McGuinness was probably making something of a point, whether you agree with it or not, by not announcing a team on time for the program. And then in the end, he didn't name the under-20s or anything. Like, it wasn't a terribly weak team. It wasn't the strongest team either. But clearly, I to me at least, knowing Jim McGuinness, I think that wasn't I want to hide this team from Mayo. I think this was I want to make a point about the fact that the last round of the league is not the match for us that possibly it should be. And I don't think too many people disagree with. People often like to have a row with what Jim McGuinness thinks and says, but I think on this occasion, I don't think too many people are thinking he's in the wrong about this.
No, like we mentioned this before, Jim puts a lot of store in the Ulster Championship. They're Ulster champions. They will want to defend that. And they know last year when they went in and ambushed Derry, they need to be on their guard for that. And they will go all out to win the Ulster Championship again, no doubt. But I suppose, look, this kind of comes back. This is just a constant theme, and it has been now for a while in relation to the calendar. And there are so many negatives to this. The one major positive, and we all accept, that the certainty afforded to club fixtures was a big thing. But I'm not sure that it was necessary. I think it was a bit of a hammer to a chestnut. And I think that you could have potentially fixed the club certainty fixture issue without effectively, condensing the calendar in the way that it has been. I think it doesn't work. Maybe it's the case. Look, I don't necessarily ever see us, and there won't ever be an acceptance to go back into September, as was suggested by, I think, even by Jarlath Burns at one stage. That won't happen. But to try and rush everything and to get it all finished by the end of July doesn't make a whole pile of sense to me. And the fact that the pre-season competitions are gone, the lads mentioned it last night on the TV, that could the leagues even begin a couple of weeks earlier to try and afford that little bit of a breathing space in between so that teams can actually go and try and win this competition. The other thing that you could potentially do, and look, it's already there to a certain extent, is incentivize it a little bit more. Now, it's already tied in with championship. There are other ways that you can go about that, in terms of home advantage, prizes, etc. So make it a competition really, really worth winning. And the GAA has shown itself to be quite flexible and quite imaginative when it comes to those types of things in the past. So you just hope that in the off season, that when all of this is settled down and everybody now takes stock over the last number of years that this condensed calendar is in, that common sense would prevail.
Yeah, well, we'll see. Okay, moving on to matters in Omagh then Peter. As Rory mentioned already, your own county looked very good, and just the kind of the couple of very poor performances in the league kind of have done them and got them relegated here. But the thing that struck me was how off it Dublin looked, Peter, and in particular in defence. As beautiful as your son Dara's goal was, they did leave Dara Canavan unmarked on the edge of the square. It was a beautiful pass, but it was still to an unmarked Dara Canavan, which you don't need to be his dad to think that that's not a really very clever idea. And there was other instances as well where they got sucked into, two men going to the for the first goal as well. There was an instance, I can't remember who they were, but two defenders went to the ball carrier and left a man free to run straight through in past the 21-yard line. They just, I don't know, it was one of those instances where in the old days, were they running up Portmarnock Beach this morning or something? Or they for a team that could have been in the league final, and I believe Desi Farrell when he said he would like to have made it to a league final, they seemed off it.
Yeah, I would have imagined it would have helped Dublin immensely to be playing in the league final with so many younger players part of a squad now. But you wouldn't have been too worried if you were a Dublin manager after 15 or 20 minutes yesterday, because they were playing against pretty stiff breeze and they managed to create, I think, at least three clear-cut goal chances in the first half. Didn't take them. They were keeping throwing at bay okay. But from 15, 20 minutes on, thrown appeared to cut through them much more easily than Desi would like. But again, when you bring so many younger new players into a squad, it's inevitable that they're going to take time to gel, to play together. And we had a number, you referenced a couple of incidents whereby their defenders weren't on the same page regarding helping one another. So look, that's something that they're going to have to work with moving forward. They still physically, they're very strong around the middle. They have Con. They didn't start with Kieran Kilkenny yesterday, and he was brilliant for them in the earlier part of the league. So look, by and large, Desi will take a lot of positives out of the National League, but he'll be very disappointed with what happened in Roma yesterday, and very disappointed with their first half performance in particular, down in the athletic grounds as well. But look, they have time, and they have a Leinster Championship that they should be able to work their way through. So as I say, they have time to get working for it, and they'll still be a tough nut to crack come the All-Ireland quarterfinals, semi-finals.
Three trips to Ulster and nul points on all three occasions. Not great, really, from Desi's point of view. But again, look, a team that's, it's a new team. They are trying to find their way. So a lot of very inexperienced players. The thing for me yesterday, Peter mentioned about the breeze, and I thought Tyrone were excellent. Very unlucky to go down, by the way. I mean, it'll give you an indication, really, of how nearly all the teams kind of played in fits and starts, that there was such a sort of a concertina nature to the way the league finished. And Tyrone were, after a game of musical chairs, Tyrone found themselves sitting without one to go down, which is very, very harsh. But look, I don't know if they'll be hugely disappointed with that. From Dublin's perspective, it was 2-16 when Michael McKiernan scored that goal. 10 minutes to go, it was 2-16 to 1-6. Oh, that's a paddling. And I think they only scored 2 pointers actually in that second half, I think, and they got 4 in the last few minutes. That probably dressed up the scoreboard a little bit from their point of view, but it wasn't a good display by Dublin, and they have a bit of work to do, all right. But as Peter mentioned, look, they'll navigate their way through Leinster easy enough, and when the real football starts, we might see a little bit more of where Dublin are then.
Yeah, just a brief mention. Armagh 424, Derry 118. No great surprise that the All-Ireland champions beat a Derry side who have already been relegated and probably obviously looking forward to the Ulster Championship. Just so the last thing I wanted to mention, Peter, was again kind of referenced it a little bit a minute ago, but it is interesting. Kerry top scorers in the league, 545 in the last 2 games, but not a single 2-pointer. It just shows that there are different ways to skin a cat, and Kerry have found theirs. They're, everybody in Kerry will be rejoicing. They're kicking the ball, but they're not trying to kick it 40 yards over the bar. They're playing to their own strengths, and they do look all of a sudden they look ominously good, don't they?
Look, absolutely, and the best managers now between the league and the championship, they'll have different things to work on, but every manager has got to play to their strengths. They just can't come up with a game plan, say, right, we're going to do this. It's got to be, reflective of the players that they have and play to their strengths. Some cases, teams have brilliant kickers of the ball who can shoot it from 40, 50 metres. Absolutely, they go for 2-pointers. But in Kerry's strength, it is kicking the ball to quality players who are inside, who love going for goals. When Kerry played Tyrone in Oma Clifford or in Pomeroy, Clifford had 3 goals. Kerry could have had another 3 or 4 on top of that. So why would you change when you have quality players in there? So look, that's what they're doing and doing very well. Other managers are going to have to come up with game plans around the strengths of the players that they have at their disposal. And that's the teams inevitably that are going to do well in the championship will get working on that from now to the championship.
Yeah, Jack O'Connor did say there's no chance of Seanie O'Shea playing in the league final, Rory. Or sorry, he won't be seen for the next couple of weeks anyway. But you'd imagine he's a man who, from outside the 2-point arc, would definitely fancy his chances.
You would know with Kerry, they might be keeping their powder dry on that one in terms of 2-point shots. It's not for the want of ability that they're not taking these shots on. I suppose the only concern that they really do have is, and we've seen, and it's again another feature of the new rules, is how important your far larger in the middle of the field is, and your ability to win ball from kickouts. So the Diarmuid O'Connor injury will be a little bit of a concern for them. They don't have a huge amount of depth in that middle of the field because, as Eamon correctly pointed out, they're all out in Australia. But that's the only real caveat. I mean, look, I think these new rules, when all these rules came in, I just thought this is tailor-made for them, because it'll just open up the field a little bit more. It'll liberate the likes of the Cliffords, both of them, and there's no one better that can punish you, because the way they can kick the ball and move it quickly from back to front and really turn defenses on their heels. There's very few teams around that are able to do it with the same level of skill and pace and accuracy that Kerry have.
Yeah. Okay. Division 2, in keeping with Division 2, was a bit mad. Cork went up to Cavan and got a win, which kept them safe. And probably in the Sam Maguire Rory, you can explain in a second, barring a couple of oddities. Meath were awful in the first half against Louth and were duly beaten, 19 to 17 points. Westmeath drew with Roscommon, as everybody predicted. Not at all. Roscommon still promoted. But then the funniest one, of course, was in Clonus, where Monaghan were beaten by a point by Down, but Monaghan were still promoted and Down were still relegated. It's a cruel old game sometimes, Peter, isn't it?
Unbelievable. At a very strange Division 2. Each one of those games that Westmeath played, they would be thinking we should be winning every one of those games. And Davy, after being so disappointed last week, he thought their chance was gone of getting promoted. I think a lot of people would have been expecting Cavan to beat Louth and Cavan going up. But these Cork men, it's just typical Cork.
Yeah.
You can never predict with any certainty what they're going to do, and produced a very good performance, which will give them a lot of hope moving forward. Down, whilst they're going down, same again, they beat the team yesterday who ended up topping the division on their day. They're very capable. Conor Laverty will be very disappointed that they have been relegated. But again, they're minus a few players. He'll take encouragement definitely from yesterday's performance, where they played really well to beat a strong Monaghan side.
Okay, Rory, tell us.
Sorry, Mikey, just to finish on that, success to me, the success story of Division 2 has been Louth, because when you look at the amount of players that they are missing, for a team to come up, I would have thought there's not a chance that they're going to manage to survive. There's a lot of quality teams there in Division 2, and even yesterday, minus Mulroy and Craig Lennon and a number of other players they've been decimated for this past 3 or 4 games, but they've held their own and continue to play good football, and they're playing with a lot of cohesion and a lot of togetherness. So kudos to Jared Brennan for the way that he has kept those men at it, and they're going to be playing Division 2 football next year again.
Yeah, but they will only be playing Sam Maguire, it would seem, because they're third from bottom right, if they make it to a Leinster final, which they're on the right side of the draw, i.e. not the same side as Dublin, and having made the last 2 Leinster finals, they'd probably fancy their chances, even with a resurgent Kildare on the same side of the draw of them. So that's the match.
Westmeath, I think Westmeath are on that side as well.
They are, yeah, and they'll be motivated if nothing else going into the Leinster Championship. What's the story for Cork? How can Cork end up in the Tailteann Cup?
Very simple. Sligo beat Mayo.
Okay.
And I think, and that's, look, Sligo have performed admirably over the course of the league. It's not beyond the realms of possibilities. It's unlikely. But if Sligo or Fermanagh were to make a provincial final, well, then Cork are in the Tailteann Cup, unless they were to go out and make a Munster final, which is a big ask, given they're going to run into Kerry in the semi-final, as long as they can navigate the quarter-final first. But look, you would assume that there's a good chance that they've just about saved themselves again, and Yeah, look, I suppose it started well as a campaign, good win against Meath. Then, the wheels came off a small bit and they rallied towards the back end. But it seems Cork seems to be in this loop at the minute that they just can't get out of. And like the reality is, with Tyrone and Derry coming down to Division 2, it's not going to get any easier to try and get out of that league next year. So that loop, unfortunately, could continue.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with Division 2. You're always due a couple of big fish coming down to you, and and in Kildare and Offaly, at least they're a very intriguing team. Sure, we haven't got all day here, so we might as well move on to Division 3. Peter, that's the job that Mickey Hart and his co-manager, let's be honest, he is the co-manager. The job they have done is phenomenal. I know they were beaten, but like they kind of knew that unless they conceded a cricket score below an Ennis, that they were going to be promoted regardless. So they lost 2-14 to 2-9 to Clare, but they've been promoted. And even with the Mickey Hart factor, I don't think too many people were really considering Offaly promotion contenders this year. It's a phenomenal job, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think their objective at the start of the year to have retained their Division 3 status would have been a good campaign for them, in my opinion. But certainly Mickey wouldn't have went down there with that in mind. He would have been talking about promotion, and he's got it. And when you look at the likes of Antrim going down, Antrim would have viewed themselves maybe as a team that should have been getting out of Division 3. So again, Laois, Sligo, Fermanagh, Clare, there's no easy games in that division. So for Offaly to go up along with Kildare has been eye-catching, absolutely, and the standout story from Division 3.
Yeah, as I mentioned on League Sunday yesterday, Rory, the Offaly footballers are a little bit like the Offaly hurlers. They're not the biggest team, they're not the strongest team, but they are very athletic, they're quick, and you can see they're very well coached the way that they play.
Yeah, and again, not to keep breaking overall goals, we did mention this on the famous podcast that never made air, but what an incredible achievement for a county the size of Offaly. I don't really know how many clubs they have. I wouldn't say it's much more than 20 to 25 clubs. Population, 60, 70,000 maybe. One of the smallest counties in Ireland. And their hurlers are in Division 1A, Division 1B. No, Division 1A.
They're in Division 1A now,
The hurlers will be in Division 1A, and their footballers are in Division 2. Just extraordinary. There's no words. Like, what an amazing achievement for a county that obviously got its house in order. Huge credit to Michael Duignan. They had a bit of vision around their Faithful Fields project. They went away and they sorted out their development squads. They're underage. They're now winning titles, under 20 All-Irelands in football and hurling. They're producing players at a fantastic level. Yeah, they may not be the biggest, they may not be the strongest, but they will always have probably that Offaly spirit and that Offaly sort of panache, and they will play with a certain style. Couldn't say enough good things about the way they've done their business over the last year, 2-3 years and beyond.
83,500 is the population.
83,000. Yeah, there's probably more people living in Swords.
And they don't have very many. It's not great radio to count up how many clubs there are, but according to clubinfo.ie, I'm going to say it's somewhere between 20 and 30. So yeah, it's a phenomenal achievement.
Unbelievable.
And then their neighbours, Peter, Kildare, are seen as the county with the massive growing population that haven't been harnessing it. They haven't given out about, like, obviously them being relegated to Division 3 last year, and the back of being relegated the year before was seen as a bit of a scandal by some. It wasn't as clean cut as it looked like it would be after a round or two, but they beat Antrim 126-115 yesterday to absolutely confirm their promotion. They're back in Division 2, but I don't think they didn't blow the opposition away, say the way even Cork did. I was looking back to see who's the last team with a 100% record, because Wexford obviously had one, and it was Cork in 2020 when they were in Division 3. They won every game. Kildare haven't been that impressive, so it's not like everything's rosy in the garden in Kildare now. They've their new stadium and they've got a world-beating football team. There's still work to be done there, you'd imagine, and Leinster Championship could still be a stretch for them. Yeah,
if you had said, after 2 or 3 rounds that they would be going up on score difference alone, you'd have been left wondering what has gone wrong. I'd say Brian Flanagan probably scratching his head somewhat. he has got some very good performances out of his squad. I think they're absolutely moving in the right direction. They needed to go straight up again after being relegated last year. So they have done that, job done. Still serious amount of improvement required, but he has got the personnel. There's quality footballers down there in Kildare. There's a lot of big men and there's a lot of talent up front. So they have a good setup there at the minute. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare in Leinster. The big question is who's going to put it up to Dublin? Who's next to Dublin? Meath at times this year showed that they are capable of putting it up to them. Quality players inside, although they have obviously a major blow now that Jody Morris is out. You have Westmeath there as well, and now you have Offaly emerging. But
did you hear me say that Wexford won 7 out of 7 this spring, Peter?
Well, they're heading the right road too, but I don't think Dublin are looking over the shoulder at them just yet. But absolutely, Kildare still have the potential to put it up to some of the bigger teams. So I'll be looking on with interest to see how they fare in Leinster.
Yeah, and obviously that loss for Antrim confirmed their relegation to Division 4. But given, get Corrigan Park, Armagh's away form has been awful in the league. You never know what could happen. You couldn't see relegation making them any more likely to acquiesce to the Ulster GA's request. But and obviously Leitrim's Annus Horribilis continues, beaten 32 points to 10 by their local neighbours and rivals Sligo. A lot's been said about Leitrim. I don't think we need to go over that. That's been said by some people who probably need to stop talking about it, to be fair. And then just finally, I won't bang on about Wexford, undefeated, etc., etc. 218 to 110 winners of Longford. I think the last word here does need to go to James Naughton of Limerick.
4-12.
Peter, did you ever score 4-12 in a match?
I did. I scored 4-12 in a league campaign one year way back, but not in one game, not near it.
It's phenomenal. And was it 4-3 from play, Rory? So
4-3 from play. It's just unbelievable. I think it was really important as well. Look, we know Munster mightn't be necessarily the strongest province at the minute in terms of provincial championships, etc. So I think it was important that Limerick got back on the horse and got a promotion. I think there's only 6 counties in Munster, and half of them were playing their trade in Division 4. So that promotion for Limerick, I think, is a big boost for football in the county, and I think it'll, I think just the headline, as you mentioned, is it's all about James Naughton. I mean, 4-12 and 4-3 from play. It's just absolutely incredible stuff, and definitely the standout performance of the weekend. That's for sure.
I think so. Look forward. I'm going to hopefully bring a couple of kids into Croke Park and see the Wexford match. We don't know what day yet. That's the interesting thing. Usually it's a foregone conclusion that 3 and 4 are on the Saturday and 1 and 2 are on the Sunday. But Marty Morrissey was reporting last night that all we know for sure is Division 1 is going to be on Sunday and the other 3 are currently up in the air. So it might end up being 3 and 4 on Saturday and 1 and 2 on a Sunday, but seemingly it's not as cut and dried as it has been before. And that is nearly always the case, Rory, isn't it? It's assumed.
It may be the case that this might have a knock-on effect with teams out in the championship. So they might look, I don't know, our teams out the following week or some of the teams out the following week. So they might pull one of the finals forward to Saturday to allow an extra day. That could be a consideration that might be in the ether at the minute, and I'm sure it will come out in the wash now today, because again, as we know, there's no time.
Yeah, by the time a lot of you listen to this, you'll already know the answer and say, what are you talking about? Listen, we'll leave it at that. Peter, thank you very much for your sterling efforts during the league, but go get your championship haircut now and we'll chat to you
there's no need for that. No need for that.
Join the club. See you later, Peter. Shane McGrath will be long down a minute. Talk hurling.
All right.
Forgive him.
He hits it! It's over the bar! Oh! Holy Moses!
Shane McGrath is with us now. We're going to discuss the conclusion of the league phase of the Allianz League. And Shane, the de facto league semi-final between Cork and Galway didn't quite... the contest we were hoping for didn't quite materialise, did it?
No, especially after the 4th goal went in, Mikey. I suppose it became a real challenge match kind of stuffed in. And by just looking at my notes here, the 4th goal was on the 57th minute. So you'd more or less 18, 19 minutes there of just kind of challenge match stuff, really, lads floating around the field and everything. But Look, it's not Cork's fault. I actually don't think Galway were as bad as the scoreline makes it out to be.
Yeah, agree.
I do think they were very competitive,
They
particularly in the
missed they missed some awful frees.
They did like, but
Yeah.
Nyland's a good free taker. Conor
Mm.
Cooney's a good free taker. Jason Flynn, I don't know, could he just get to grips with the bit of a breeze that was in the park there
Mm.
Saturday night? I don't know what it was, but not like him to miss the ones, and you could see how frustrated he was, Mikey, when he missed them. But I think the worst thing maybe that has happened for Tip is the Tip match themselves against Cork. And I'll tell you why. So Cork scored 1 goal that night, but Cork had 6 serious goal chances that night against Tip, right? And since then, Cork have scored 10 goals. And I'm just going through the chances. I was at the Clare match, so I think that's 7 chances that they scored 6. And I think if I'm going through my notes here now, Rory, I could be wrong, but I haven't, every time they had a goal chance tonight, I just put a G on my notes, and I have 8 Gs here. And so they've scored 10 goals from 15 chances. And it's very, very clear to see that obviously the Tip game irked them a small bit, and rightly so. And I think they've gone full throttle for goals since, and it's probably a worry for the rest of us, Mikey, to be honest. But you know, they're taking their chances. And if you look at Dara Fitzgibbon in the first half alone, Dara scored a brilliant goal, top spinned it underneath the goalie's legs. Then, like, he's another potential goal chance just after that in minute 30, and minute 32 then has another goal chance. So you know, whether it's in their mindset or they have decided as a group that they're going to need to score 2 or 3 goals to get where they want to go this year. I just think it's very interesting to see from the last 2 games. And then the other thing to speak on Cork, I think it's been a good league overall for Galway, Mikey. Just add that quickly, because I think they've come a long way since Salt Hill Day 1. They have found a good spine of their team. I think Gavin Lee is a serious centre back and is going to become one of Galway's top centre backs. I think Tiernan Killeen at 11 is good. I think he plays too deep sometimes, but that's just me looking on. But I think what they've found is a really good spine. Fintan Burke probably a 3. Throw in Dahi Burke back into that mix there. Conor Cooney or Conor Whelan in at 14. And I think in midfield, in Tom Monaghan and Keenan Fahy, they found 2 regular midfielders. So I think from that alone, good league for Galway, and they're building it. The other thing for Cork, and I found very interesting, and Rory, I suppose me and you were chatting Saturday night, what Liam Sheedy spoke on the puckouts. I just thought it was very interesting, Mikey, right? And just maybe people who didn't see it or did see it. So Cork, Patrick Sullivan has it in the locker to go maybe 90, 95 yards, right? And like he has that puck out. But they wanted to see the other night that they liked going short. And by short, I mean they liked to go within a 50-yard puck out. And in the first half, Mark Coleman got 4 puck outs, and Cork got 3 points after 4 puck outs. One in particular was a Shane Barrett point down by the stand. Mark Coleman won it, looked down, Shane Barrett in space. Shane Barrett was immense the other day. He's had a brilliant league. He's in all-star form, like he really is. And 4 points from play. But I just think it's interesting, Mikey. It's asking the question maybe of the rest of us, and maybe Tip now in the league final to say, right, if the Cork half forward line drop a bit towards their own goal for puck out, and if we don't follow, or if 5 or 7 don't follow, 6 will sit anyway. You now have a potential of Decky Dalton getting a short puck out from 80 yards, and we all know what he can do. You now have a potential of Shamie Harnedy getting a puck out. You now have a potential of Diarmuid Healy or Shane Barrett maybe. So if you don't follow, that could happen, okay? If you do follow, now you have 40 yards of space in front of Brian Hayes, who hopefully will be okay from his injury, Alan Connolly, Hoggy, Jack O'Connor. I just thought it was an interesting one the other night that they didn't really go with the long one, but I'm sure they'll have it in the locker if they need it. So from those couple of things alone, Mikey, the goals that they're taking and the chances that they're trying to create and the way that they're using the puck outs as well, that they're now saying, if you want us to go short, we'll go short and we'll punish you. If you let us go long, we'll go long, we'll punish you. And I just think that's where maybe the worry is for the rest of us, Mikey, to be honest.
Yeah, it was impressive, Roy. Like 422, like that's the Gaelic football score these days. Like that's impressive.
Yeah. Football is the new hurling. They played really well. I agree with Shane. I actually thought Galway hurled. You know, I thought the game was competitive. I think the second goal really, I suppose, kind of killed off maybe just killed it off as a contest and gave Cork that little bit of a cushion going in at half time. But I felt Galway actually came with something. And but the big thing for me, and Shane has just spoken about it, they decided to sit back and they decided to try and squeeze that space to try and not allow that room for the Cork inside line, because they have that fear of goals. But the problem that Cork now pose for a lot of teams is, okay, so you, as Shane just mentioned, so you're giving us the short option. Grand. No problem. And one player who I thought had an absolutely outstanding game, and I would be quite critical privately, was Damien Cahalane. Somebody once said to me, that they don't like. I remember Cork played Clare a couple of years ago in a championship, and they allowed Damien Cahalane the ball from the short puck outs, and he's actually a pretty good stick merchant. He was superb the other night. He's actually given Pat a real selection dilemma. Now, having said that, Galway gave him way too much space. They gave the Cork inside line too much space, and they allowed Patrick Collins to get those puck outs away nice and soft and nice and easy. I don't necessarily think a Limerick or a Clare or certainly a Tipperary will probably do that. They'll look to go mano a mano and then maybe squeeze back should the puck outs be lost. I think you're going to have to mix and match it. You're going to have to come with something very, very different. I think, look, there's loads of elements in relation to the way Cork are playing at the minute that I suppose give them a huge amount of encouragement for the year ahead. One of the biggest aspects that people might have been critical of them in the past was their inability to mix it in a physical sense. Now, they fixed that as well, in my view. They're quite a big side. They're very, very imposing now, and they're not afraid to get stuck in. And the full back line, as I said, I thought Niall O'Leary was outstanding. Sean O'Donoghue played really well. And if you mix that element of the game with obviously the skills element, which Cork will always have, well, then that creates a very, very difficult puzzle for your opponent to try and fix. But as Shane also mentioned, the only negative, and it is a major negative, is the injury to Brian Hayes. Now, sometimes it did look a bad one. Sometimes that can be a bit of a springer and it can pop back in and there mightn't be any damage. I wouldn't necessarily say we're going to see him in the league final. And that's what you're hoping. Yeah, but look, one of my friends texted me, sure, look, he walked off. People walk off with serious injuries. That's the unfortunate aspect with high-level elite sport these days. They do walk off the field, and doesn't necessarily mean that there isn't something seriously wrong. So
what's the diagnosis, Rory?
I think it's a scan this morning.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't think they're going to know really until later on today.
And was it with them ones now, lads? It didn't, like, was it a bang, because it looked like he was on his own kind of?
Oh, he was on his own. He was on his own. He was just running, and like the leg looked like it sort of sprung backwards the wrong direction just for less than a split second, and a pop and it sprung forward. No, he wasn't in major distress. Like when a lad does a cruciate, a really bad one, there's obviously inordinate pain. So you can tell when a fella's in distress. Now, he wasn't, but he just wasn't comfortable with what happened, and they did the right thing. They took him off, and obviously, look, they'll get him checked out, and fingers crossed. Having said that, look, Cork will also know and understand you're going to have to accept that these things are going to happen. We've seen Limerick in the past lose Cian Lynch for an entire year. They lost Declan Hannon. They lost Sean Finn. It still didn't knock a shot out of them. They still went out, won Munster Championships, won All-Irelands. You're going to have to cope with these things.
Yeah. But Rory, you've probably never been in a better place to cope than you are this year.
And that's what I was just going to say. Yeah. Like Alan Connolly, who I have a huge amount of time. I've been watching Alan since he was, like even going back to his early days at underage, and I've seen him in action, particularly at club level now as well. Like he came on, like, I mean, you're bringing on Alan Connolly and Seamus Harnedy. It's a depth of quality that, a lot of teams don't have really. But Alan scored a point. He got 1 point, and he scored a point that I don't actually think Brian Hayes would be capable of doing. Now, Hayes gives you different things because of his size, his physique, and he's very direct. But Connolly has that goal threat in him, but he also brings a little bit of something else. And I think if the injury is serious, and we all hope it's not, well, obviously all Cork people hope it's not, I think they have the depth to cope.
Yeah.
So looking ahead to the league final then, Shane, an all-Munster affair, which, we were just spent a good bit of time on the football podcast talking about, arsebaxing and, dummy teams and, teams not particularly wanting to win a national title because of the proximity to the provincial championships. there's a little bit more space in the hurling, but at the same time, an all-Munster affair does cloud the waters slightly, would you think? Do you think we're going to see both managers showing their full hands?
I'd say like if you take the tip boys, like a lot of that panel have no medal as of yet, like with as senior tip hurdlers.
Both panels.
All the Cork panel have no national medal as senior Cork hurlers. They have a good few of them have Munster medals, like but like it's a national medal, like at the end of the day, and like and you just said you don't appreciate Mikey till you step away from the thing, and maybe your mother or your grandmother, your father, your grandfather might put together a little thing of your medals, and you know, a national medal will go up there, like you know what I mean. That's that you're in a very elite group there to be winning these things at top level inter-county. So they'll both be going for it, 100% they will, because you know whatever you've done so far this year, if you can have a cup on the table to kind of justify all that, you're very, very quickly getting over tiredness. You're very, very quickly getting over that game. Your feeling is good. The buzz is good. And more often than not, it will carry on into the championship for you. So I've no doubt that both teams will be going hammer and tongs at this.
And will Tip be happy to play it in the park? Yeah.
Tip would be, yeah, because I think it's a great setting for a final. Tip are going down there to play a championship, Mikey. So it'd be a great dry run in that regard, as regards crowd wise. You're going to have a good crowd at it. So you could get your timings right. You could get your, you know, where you're going to go for grub. How long is it going to take you to get from hotel to the park? Because I said it's a perfect trial run for them. Where I would have it now, and maybe not everyone would agree. I know there's a good home and away thing with Tip, but would a potential double header? Maybe you know better now. You might have heard ahead of me in Crow Park with the 1B final. Maybe that might be an idea as well, but Tip would have no bother going to Cork, and I'd say Cork would have no bother going to Thurles. I know Cork 100%. People love coming to Thurles, get to train up, good crack around the town. There's always good buzz around when the Cork crowds come. Hopefully we won't probably outnumber them again, but hopefully we'll have more Tip people than we had the last time they came to Thurles for championship. But there's a good feeling in Tip at the moment, Mikey, with this group. And while the first half against Clare the other night was, my brother was at it and he said it was just nothing short of borderline sleeping tablet stuff. But the second half was brilliant. And, you know, even at the end there, I don't know whether Lohan and Cahill shake or not shake hands. I don't think it was too... I don't think they're best buddies, like, you know, but, you know, all them things add to Munster Championship down the road as well. So it was a big win for Tip in regards. A lot of lads got to go or we're getting a chance.
Yeah, we're talking about Cork depth. We can talk a bit about Tipperary depth now as well, can we?
Tip's depth, Mikey, to be honest, Tip's depth is the younger guys. And a lot of us in Tip, myself included, we knew these lads were good. We probably would have expected another year or two to get them up to the pace, but when you see that maybe 3 or 4 of our top guys at the moment are going to play under 20s championship this week, I suppose that's where we're at the moment. In regards to the strength and depth we have, the younger lads have stepped up and they've really announced themselves to the wider world. We would have known all about them in Tip from underage and from club stuff and school stuff, but they really have stepped up and they're pushing on the older guys, and even the likes of Noel there now. While that was his first start there at the weekend, but I just think it's Tip are in a good place, Cork are in a good place. If it was my head say, you know, Cork are the stronger panel, there's no doubt about that. But obviously there'll be a big hop in Tip. I don't know, to be honest now, I don't know, would I rather see Tip give it, like, just give the performance of the year in the league final or the first round against Limerick? I suppose that's a hard question to ask, but I have no doubt that they'll both be going all out to win this game, Mikey. Yeah, and I think we'll have a good league final as a result of that. Like,
yeah, no, I don't think there's any doubt, Rory, that we saw the 2025 All-Ireland winners playing at the weekend. You know, Wexford's 119 to 112 win over Limerick was impressive, whatever way you slice it.
Listen, it was. I mean, it was Limerick at home. There's only score 112. Look, I don't know. I don't think for a second anybody will be getting any alarm bells out below in Limerick. But and we've seen them before. I mean, a couple of years ago, I think it was a 21, or they went through a league campaign where they lost nearly every game. And I think the last one was against Offaly, which I think they won, and it kept them up.
That was right, yeah.
But it was kind of a false league back then because there was really no relegation or promotion at that stage, and most of the top teams knew what they were doing. But we've seen Limerick kind of play in fits and starts. The difference, I suppose, this time around is it's a Limerick team that's in experimental mode. He is trying players out, and I don't think it would have been too pleasing to lose that badly at home to Wexford, a team relegated and with not a huge amount to play for themselves. So, yeah, I'd imagine John Kiley has a little bit of work to do. They probably need to get some of their mainstays back. I'm sure we'll look Garrow, Declan Hannon. Has Declan Hannon played in the league at all? No minutes at all.
Down to play Saturday. Colin Coughlin actually replaced him, but my understanding is it's like a dead leg or something he has, Rory. So
Yeah.
it's not major for Declan. I suppose it's just one of those things. If you don't have to chance him, you don't chance him. But I still think he's a massive guy for maybe not a starter, because for me Kyle Hayes is their sixth this year. But I mean, you imagine what do you say about Johnny Leahy? We used to call Johnny Leahy Scream and Tip, because when people you see him warming up on the sideline, the crowd will go wild. So scream if you love John Leahy. So and then I think Decky Hannon has a similar impact for Limerick, because of Limerick people love him. He's the most decorated captain of all time and might never be accomplished again in hurling, in terms of hurling, inter-county level. And I think if you see Decky Hannon coming on 15, 20 minutes, I think it's massive for Limerick. So I do think he'll feature in Championship, Rory, all right. Maybe not as a starter, but definitely to have a massive impact on games like.
Yeah, they have a little bit of work to do. They can obviously now park everything and just look ahead. It's Tipperary first up. That now is going to be their main focus, and I'm sure wherever this match is played in 2 weeks' time, John Kiley will be a very keen observer, and he'll be in the crowd somewhere, and hopefully he'll get picked up on the cameras watching everything that's going on. And by the way, on that, I do hope, like Shane mentioned, 3 venues, which is Páirc Uí Chaoimh, Semple Stadium or Croke Park. I think most people wouldn't have an issue with either of the 3 of those, as long as they don't go to a neutral venue. As in, I think it would be a mistake. Like Croke Park would be a fabulous place to take it, because I think Cork will bring a big crowd, and you'd hope Tip will too. But if it's not Croke Park, then at the very minimum they should be tossing for home advantage, because it'll guarantee a huge crowd.
Yeah.
O'Neill slams O'More Park. Yeah, I hear you. You don't want it there. You don't. Well, one thing I will say about Wexford, Shane, if you told me at the start of the league that Wexford would be going into the Leinster Championship having beaten Clare and Limerick in the league, I'd be like, grand. We'll take that. Relegation, pish posh, never mind that.
Both away.
Yeah.
Beat them both away from home.
Yeah. Green shoots and all that.
I know, yeah. I agree with you, Mikey. I just feel that we all knew like that they needed the big guns on the field to try and get these performances. And if you look at their performances when Lee Chin's not on the field, when the O'Connors aren't on the field, when maybe Damien Reck is not, going as well as he could be, I think he's a phenomenal defender. And they need all of them, because look who stepped away for you, Mikey. And look, you just don't have the same maybe caliber player there at the moment to replace the likes of the boys, the likes of the D. O'Keefes and these lads who stepped away, so I think what Wexford have learned is, can we be competitive in the Leinster Championship? Yeah, we can, definitely. How do we do that? We absolutely have to have our top 18 players fit and ready to hurl, and we have to hurl well.
Same as it ever was.
And look, but that's it, Mikey. That's it in a nutshell. Like Wexford were strong. They were a strong team going down to the Gaelic grounds the other day. They wanted to get something out of that. Maybe I didn't think they were going to win, because I thought there would be a bit of a backlash from Limerick after Kilkenny game, and there'd be lads fighting for their lives trying to make a panel, let alone a team inside Limerick at the moment. But Wexford brought the fight,
and they have a good inside line. And they have a good inside line. Jack Redmond, Cathal Dunbar and Rory O'Connor, like those guys will get you scores. It's just whether or not they can secure enough primary ball in that sort of war zone area. Yeah. That'll be the big issue for them. Like they're lacking just a little bit of leadership, as Shane mentioned. The likes of Liam Oakes, D. O'Keefe's, Matthew O'Hanlon's, they're big personalities that have exited the dressing room. So look, that'll be a challenge for them. But yeah, if they have everybody fit and available, they will give you plenty of problems.
Yeah. So Shane, so that is Wexford and Clare relegated, and coming in the other direction, obviously we have Offaly, who are already promoted, and as expected, kind of Waterford got the win over Offaly. The Offaly footballers and the Offaly hurlers effectively in dead rubbers that they lost this weekend, with nice kind of dead rubbers where they didn't need to win. Waterford did enough, but probably not the resounding Division 1B victory lap that Daisha fans maybe would have hoped for, but they're up. They're up. That's the important thing.
Yeah, they got the job done. I think it's another indication of where Offaly are at in regards to strength and depth that they have. They say in inverted commas rested a few of the younger guys. Still haven't seen Adam Screeney this year due to injury. So when he comes back, talk about crowd favourites, and a guy who could light it up for you in the championship. And when the ground gets harder and everything, he'll be a massive push on as well to an already really strong inside forward line that Offaly have, in my opinion, in terms of Charlie Mitchell, Brian Dignan, and Dan Ravenhill. Like, if you could afford to put Dan Ravenhill out in the half forward line, maybe play him as a 10 with a loose role and have Screeney inside. Offaly have a serious forward unit, and Killian Sampson is hurling out of his skin at the moment. Like, I think he's been so consistent there, either half forward, midfield. He's popped over 4 points from play the other day. All these guys are just playing with great confidence at the moment, and they're under 20s, which maybe, again, we maybe didn't think another year or two away before they would settle. They've settled in very, very well, and they're in a really good place. For Waterford, I suppose that's as strong as they've been there at the weekend, Mikey, to be able to have the lads back. And I think what Waterford have got out of the league, like Galway's, I think they've got a really good spine. I think Mark Fitzgerald at 3 is going to be one of Waterford's best, great hurlers in years to come. I've seen him up close and personal in college hurling, and I think this guy has it all. He has it in spades. He's got physicality. He's got leadership. He doesn't say much, but when he speaks, lads listen, and he does his talking on the field with his actions, and he's a great leader for Waterford. I think Ty de Burka speaks volumes of the man to come back and get man of the match in their first game back. I think there's a handful of lads in the country can do that. A midfield, there's a bit of chopping and changing on a midfield. Darragh Lyons for me, yeah. Who goes with him? I don't really know. Maybe Paddy Levy for his work rate and what he'd offer you. But I think Jamie Barron at 11 and Desi at 14, I really like that. I really like the spine they have, and they can build around it in with the Bennetts. And I just think, Watford are coming at the right time. Ozzie Gleeson, hopefully might see him maybe sooner rather than later. Could he be a midfield role for Watford? Could it be a halfback role for Watford? And they've good options there. So I think it's coming at the right time for Peter Queally and Dan Shannon and Owen Kelly and the Watford management they're getting it back at the right time. It'll be interesting to see how they go at this league final. I think they'll go at it to win it, because no more so than Tip or Cork. I think Watford need a cup on the table, and I think this would be a massive boost for them all. Heading into championship. I suppose quickly to touch on it, Mikey, not to spend too much time, but again, we'd a red card in the game with James Mann. And I just think I just put something up on X or Twitter the other day, and I just feel it's another call for TV ref, lads. I just think Sean Stack made that call, I think, for Johnny Murphy. Was it the wrong call? It was. But again, these are split-second decisions that these guys are being asked to make with their naked eye, and I think it's another indication there for a TV ref. Like, if you even look at it, like how long do refs give debating with an umpire over something? They probably give 45 seconds a minute. If you had that in a TV ref circumstance and take it away from the umpires or linesmen, and you're getting a definitive call in slow motion from different angles, and I think these things are sorted better all the time by a TV ref. So I think that's another indicator that we need it. We don't want to see the shoulder going out of hurling. We want to see the physicality. But again, just don't put yourself in the position maybe where if you go in for a big hit and a guy turns his head all of a sudden. But I think a TV ref would definitely help with all that, Mikey. But I think we've spoken to death about that maybe at this.
You have, and I've listened to you with interest. And while I think in theory it's a nice idea, in practice we can't even get the hooter right at the moment. The technology isn't always.
We just have to go back to the old air horns. Like, I mean, we had them in the terrace there when we tip the player were going well. And your hand to be frozen off you there, pressing the can there before they'd even come out into the field. Or just go back to that maybe for the.
When we're struggling to make a loud noise that everybody can hear at the right time, I do wonder how we would cope with the idea of a video ref. But in theory, I can see your point. Last word, Rory. I know you wanted to mention them. Going up to 1B. Kildare, which is it's a good story. It's a county on the up, built largely around one club. It has to be said that like what's going on in Naas is phenomenal, but it's not just Naas. And we talk about Leinster hurling a lot around here and bemoaning it and wanting it stronger. Not saying Kildare are at that level yet, but they're going in the right direction.
And being managed really well. I think Brian Dowling's down there doing an unbelievable job. It is, again, another big boost. Kildare have come at a couple of, they have had a couple of wins blowing behind them at certain points. They've made strides. Like, look, hurling is hard. It's really, really hard to try and get yourself up to that next level. All they can do really is to just get to the next level available to them. I think they are a very good test case, given the size of the population and given the influx of hurling IQ that has come in from places like Kilkenny and all around that Leinster sort of geographical area in and around. They've got a big influx of people that understand the game. Obviously, as you mentioned, Naas are a major driver of that. Look, in a town that size, they should be, given the size of the population, and that they're the only club and the only show in town. But like, I think, we've heard Willie Marr, and I think I'd be very encouraged by his appointment. I think he was a fabulous appointment from a hurling perspective. He did a fantastic interview on Second Captain's podcast last week, and he said one line which really struck a chord with me. He said, if you can make hurling successful and work in a place like Dalkey, you should be able to make it work anywhere. And I think he's dead right. You know, in such a sort of a wealthy part of the country that might be seen, you know, slightly Ross O'Carroll Kelly-ish in terms of its diaspora and the kind of people that live there. I think if hurling works there and you can create All-Ireland club champions, then there's no reason why Kildare couldn't be one of these major test cases that the GAA could really drive, because they have population. They probably need a little bit more depth and a little bit more quality in their club game. If there is only one club down there competing, how do you get more clubs competing? Do you stretch out the leagues across county boundaries to try and give them? And I think you might have mentioned before, Shane, that they're already doing that some of them do compete.
Yeah, Carlo playing that Leinster, Carlo club's playing that Leinster League, and I think they love it. I think they love playing against the likes of Kilkenny teams and the Wexford teams and stuff like that. So, and then, like as you said about Naas, I think Naas have 14 on the panel out of 35, 36. So again, but I just think, I agree with everything what you're saying, Rory. I think Brian Down's doing a brilliant job. He's coming off the back win to All-Irelands with the Kilkenny Camogie team. I think the big thing for Kildare here, Mikey, is right next year now Kildare get to play Dublin, Antrim, Clare, Wexford. And massive. And you get to see where you're at on a regular basis, rather than, as Rory's saying, having a couple of wins that, let's be honest, because it's Division 2, a lot of people might take too much notice of. They know what they're doing. But next year now against Dublin, Antrim, Clare, Wexford, those games now, a couple of
serious games.
You know what I mean? They're big games. And if you want to promote hurling and you want your child or whatever it is to go to see Kildare hurling next year, well, if Tony Kelly's on the opposition, that's what you want to do. If Lee Chin is on the opposition, you want to take him. If Donald Burke is on the opposition, you want to take your child to see these guys up close personal. And I think it'll be massive for Kildare hurling getting up. And, you know, kudos to all involved. Kudos to the down lads as well. They'll have these games as well. And the promotion that'll go on the basis of the league alone for those teams next year will be absolutely massive. So it will.
Yeah. Okay. Nice point to end on. Thank you, Rory. Thank you, Shane. And thank you to Peter Canavan earlier. Jackie and Rory will be back on Thursday to look ahead to the Football League finals. And so have a nice week, everybody, and we'll chat to you soon. Good luck. Goodbye.
Lead by a point, and there's the whistle. It's over.